I woke up to warmth. A heavy arm draped over my waist, breath against the back of my neck, a heartbeat pressed to my spine. For a few seconds, I didn't understand why my body felt so weak, why every muscle trembled, why my scent was thick in the air, why the sheets smelled like him. Then I opened my eyes and saw the wall of Damon's room, and the panic hit me so hard I forgot how to breathe. I sat up fast, too fast, and the world spun. My skin burned, my glands stung. My limbs felt like they weren't mine. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. I looked down and saw Damon's arms sliding off my waist as he shifted in his sleep. His bare chest, his hair a mess, his scent, strong, dizzying, coiled around the room like fog. My best friend. The one person I'd spent 5 years lying to. My voice cracked. Damon? He didn't wake. I pressed my shaking hand against my mouth, trying to stop the panic from crawling up my throat. But every movement made it worse. My hips ached, my glands throbbed, my inner thighs. I squeezed my eyes shut. No. This wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to go into heat early. He wasn't supposed to be in rut. We weren't supposed to be alone. And Damon hated omegas. Hated their weakness, their dependence, the way they were treated in society. He had no idea his best friend was one. I'd hidden it for 5 years. 5 years of suppressants. 5 years of pretending I was just like him. And now one stupid night, ruined everything. I grabbed my clothes off the floor with shaking hands. My shirt was torn. My jeans stretched. My underwear... I swallowed vomit. I had to get out. Right now. Before he woke up. Before he smelled me. Before he realized what happened and looked at me with disgust. I didn't even bother with my shoes. I grabbed my phone, my keys, and stumbled out of the house barefoot, my legs barely working. The morning air hit me like ice, but the shame burning under my skin was hotter. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Because if Damon woke up and saw me like this, everything between us would break. As I walked down the street, dizzy and sore, I felt the weight of the past 5 years closing in like a fist around my ribs. Every memory of Damon talking about omegas being weak or messy or too dependent. Every careless joke at parties. Every irritated sigh when someone's scent got too strong. And me, sitting there pretending I agreed. Pretending I didn't feel every word like a knife. If he knew what I was, what I'd always been, he would have stopped being my friend years ago. So I hid it. I hid everything. I hid the way my heats hurt. I hid the panic attacks when the suppressants started giving me side effects. I hid my medical records. I hid my scent. All because I didn't want him to leave. But last night ruined all of it. The rut, the heat, the way our bodies reacted to each other. The way Damon grabbed me like he couldn't breathe without me. The way I didn't push him away. The way I wanted him.
God, I hated myself. By the time I reached my apartment, my legs were shaking so badly I had to lean against the doorframe. I told myself I wouldn't cry. I cried anyway. I avoided Damon the next day, and the next, and the next. He called, he texted, he knocked on my door until the neighbors complained. But I couldn't face him. Not when I knew he'd smell the heat lingering on me. Not when I knew he'd put the pieces together. So I disappeared. I told myself I was fine. I told myself I could handle it. But I wasn't fine. My nausea got worse. My appetite vanished. I could barely keep water down. I was exhausted all the time. But the emotional exhaustion was worse. Every time my phone lit up with Damon's name, my stomach twisted. He left messages. "Rowan, are you okay? Did I do something wrong? Please answer, I'm worried. Rowan, please." And then one that broke me. "Just tell me you're alive." I curled up in bed and pressed my forehead to my knees. He didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve silence. He deserved an explanation. But how could I explain something I didn't fully understand myself? On the 6th day, I stared at my reflection, pale, shaking, eyes dark-ringed, and whispered, "Am I pregnant?" The nausea, the dizziness, the soreness, the heat signs lasting longer than they should.
I forced myself to stand, grab my wallet, and walk to the pharmacy like a ghost. I bought the test with trembling hands. I held it like it might explode. The test turned positive in seconds. Not minutes, seconds. 2 lines. Bold. Clear. My brain froze. I stared at the little plastic stick while the room spun around me. No, 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 no. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't supposed to be my life. I couldn't have a baby. I could barely take care of myself. I had no family, no money, no support, no stability. My mother had long abandoned me, unless she wanted something. My job barely covered rent, and Damon would hate me. Hate that I hid my identity, hate that I lied, hate that I let this happen. My phone buzzed again. Damon. "Rowan, please. I just need to know you're safe." I dropped the phone and pressed both hands to my mouth as I sobbed. He didn't know. He couldn't know. Because once he did, he'd never look at me the same way again. 3 days later, I opened my apartment door to get a delivery, and Damon was standing there. He looked exhausted. Dark circles, messy hair, worried eyes. "Rowan." Just my name. Soft. Afraid. I froze. He stepped forward. "You've been ignoring me for over a week." His voice cracked. "I thought something happened to you." I swallowed hard. I've been busy." He stared at me like he could see every lie rippling under my skin. Then his gaze dropped to the faint trembling in my hands. "You're sick," he breathed. "Why didn't you tell me?" I stepped back. "Damon, please just go." His brow creased. "Did I hurt you? That night? Did I—" "Stop." My voice shook. "Just stop." "What happened between us was a mistake," I whispered. "A horrible mistake." He flinched like I slapped him. "Rowan, I didn't want to hurt you. I don't remember everything, but I know I would never—" "Please," I said, tears burning my eyes. "Please don't talk about it." He hesitated, then stepped closer again. "Why did you leave that morning?" His voice was raw. "Why won't you even look at me?" "Because I can't." And then it happened. His eyes sharpened. His nostrils flared. He inhaled the air between us. And his entire body went still. "Rowan." His voice dropped to a whisper. "You're pregnant." My breath stopped. He stepped back like the world tilted beneath him, his eyes wide, terrified, desperate. "Rowan, tell me it isn't mine." His voice broke. "Tell me it isn't mine." I closed my eyes. "I can't." His breath shattered. "Rowan, why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you hate omegas. And I am one." Silence. Heavy. Crushing. Deadly. Damon whispered, barely audible, "Oh my God." Damon stood frozen in my doorway, like the whole world cracked under his feet. His jaw clenched once, then again, like he couldn't force words out. "You're an omega?" he whispered. I looked away. His voice shook. "All this time? All these years?" I didn't answer. He took a shaky breath, running a hand through his hair. "Rowan, do you know what you're saying? Do you understand what this means?" "Yes," I whispered. "It means you're going to hate me even more." He flinched. "Don't do that! Don't put words in my mouth!" "You did that yourself for years. Every time you talked about omegas like they were trash." His face twisted, hurt, guilt, confusion crashing over him all at once. "Rowan, I didn't know. If I had known, you would have left me." My voice cracked. "You would have stopped being my friend the same day." He didn't deny it. He couldn't. The silence between us felt like a canyon, deep, dark, impossible to cross. Finally, he whispered, "How far along?" I wrapped my arms around my stomach without thinking. "I don't know. Not long." "And it's yours?" The softness in his voice terrified me more than his anger would have. "Yes." Barely audible. "Yes, it's yours." Damon braced a hand on the wall like his legs might give out. I don't understand how this even happened. You were always so careful. We've slept next to each other before, and nothing ever—" "That night you were in rut, and my heat came early." He stilled, completely. Slowly, painfully, Damon lifted his eyes to mine. "I hurt you." The guilt in his voice made my chest tighten. "It wasn't your fault," I said quickly. "You didn't know. I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to be in heat. It spiraled. And he swallowed hard. "I touched you. I used you." "No!" My voice shook. "No, Damon, that's not what happened." He stepped back like he didn't believe me. "Rowan, you don't understand. I don't lose control like that. I've never—" His breath hitched. "If I forced myself on you—" "You didn't!" I cut him off. "You didn't force me." His eyes snapped to mine. "There was consent," I whispered. "I wasn't unconscious. I wasn't confused. I wanted you." The room froze. Damon stared at me like he'd never seen me before. "You wanted me?" I shut my eyes. God, why did I say that? Why did I make it worse? He stepped closer. "Rowan, look at me." His voice was barely above a breath. "Did you mean that?" "Yes," I whispered, ashamed. "I meant it." For a moment, something soft flickered across his face. Hope, maybe. Something fragile. Something dangerous. But then reality crashed back down. "And now you're pregnant," he said quietly, "with my child." "Yes. And you didn't tell me." I was scared. "Of me?" He asked it like he already knew the answer, like it hurt him more than the pregnancy itself. "Yes," I whispered. His breath broke. I heard footsteps in the hall, then a voice I hadn't heard in months. "Well, well, well, isn't this a lovely surprise?" Marla Hale, my mother. She strutted into the room like she owned it, wearing perfume thick enough to choke on and a smile that made my stomach twist. "Rowan, sweetheart, I didn't return your calls. I had to come check on you." My blood ran cold. Of all the moments for her to appear, Damon looked between us, confused. "Who are you?" She smiled wider. "The mother, obviously." I stepped between them. "Mom, leave!" She laughed. "Oh, don't be dramatic. I just came to see how my darling son is doing, especially after all the chaos he's been involved in." My throat tightened. "Mom!" She looked at Damon. "Did he tell you?" Her tone was mocking, about to ruin everything.
"Tell me what?" Damon asked, tense. Marla stepped close, lowering her voice. "He's pregnant." Damon stiffened. "I know." She raised her brows, surprised he wasn't running away. "Well, then you must also know he has no job stability, no support system, and no savings. And since I'm certainly not raising another unwanted child, that responsibility falls to you, doesn't it?" My chest squeezed with humiliation. "Mom, stop. You got yourself involved with him," she pointed at Damon. "So clean up your mess." Damon's expression darkened, something sharp, protective rising in his eyes. "You don't get to talk about him like that," he said, voice low. She blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," his jaw clenched. "Don't talk about Rowan like he's a burden." Her eyes narrowed. "Oh, you think you're some kind of hero now? Please, you're an alpha. You'll get bored and leave like the rest of them." "That's enough," I said, stepping forward. "Get out." She laughed. "And if I don't?" "I'll file a restraining order." The smile dropped off her face instantly. "You ungrateful little—" "Leave," my voice cracked. "Right now." She scoffed, grabbed her purse, and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The silence afterward was suffocating. Damon stared at me. "Rowan, I didn't know. I didn't want you to know." He hesitated. "She talks to you like that often?" I swallowed. "Yeah." His hands curled into fists. "She's never setting foot near you again." After the storm of emotions, Damon sat on the couch, rubbing his face with both hands. "I need to be part of this," he said. The determination in his voice startled me. "You... what?" "I'm not stepping out of this," he said. "You're carrying my child. I don't care what happened. I'm here." I didn't respond. He continued. "Let me take you to your appointments. Let me help you. Let me at least try to be present." I wanted to push him away. I wanted to tell him he didn't owe me anything. But the truth, I was terrified. Of doing this alone. Of raising a baby without support. Of repeating my mother's mistakes. Of being unprepared.
So I nodded. Once. Barely. Damon exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. "Good," he whispered. "Thank you." We started slow. He drove me to a checkup. He asked questions, more than I did. He wrote things down. He handed me water. He hovered. Too close, too gentle, too careful. Part of me hated how much I needed him. Another part hated how relieved I felt when he didn't pull away. During one appointment, the doctor asked, "Would the father like to hear the heartbeat?" Damon straightened in the chair like he'd been shot. "Yes, please." When the monitor beeped and that small, fast flutter filled the room, Damon's expression cracked, softened, shattered. He wiped his eyes without looking at me. I looked away. This wasn't supposed to happen. He wasn't supposed to care. Because the more he cared, the more it hurt. We had quiet moments, strange moments. One afternoon he drove me home and insisted I rest on the couch. I protested, but the nausea was bad, and he wouldn't take no for an answer. It shouldn't have made my heart lurch, but it did.
He looked up at me, eyes soft, almost reverent. "Rowan, thank you for not giving up, for keeping him safe." I looked away quickly. "Don't say things like that." "Why?" "Because you don't mean it." "I do," he said quietly. "I mean every word." My throat tightened. This wasn't supposed to happen. We weren't supposed to be anything more than a mistake. But sometimes when he looked at me, I couldn't breathe. If someone had told me a year ago that I'd be sitting in a prenatal class with Damon Made, my alpha best friend, the same man who swore he would never have a family, I would have laughed. Or maybe cried, but definitely not believed it. Yet there I was, walking into a brightly lit room full of couples, holding a pamphlet titled "Preparing for Labor and Delivery," while Damon hovered behind me like I might fall apart if he took 2 steps away. The instructor welcomed everyone with a warm smile, then looked at us. "First-time parents?" Damon answered instantly with this strange mix of pride and fear in his voice. "Yes, we're learning." The "we" hit me harder than the nausea ever had. We settled on the floor mats as the instructor guided us through breathing exercises. Everyone else looked peaceful, calm, blissfully unaware of the emotional storm sitting in my spine. Meanwhile, I felt like every shallow breath exposed more of the truth I'd been trying so desperately not to feel. Damon moved behind me, placing his hands carefully on my shoulders as the instructor demonstrated. His palms were warm, too warm, and my body reacted in ways I couldn't control. My breathing stuttered, my nerves tangled together. He leaned down slightly. "Rowan, you're tensing again." I whispered back that I was fine. He whispered that I wasn't. And he was right. Because the moment he touched me, the air felt different, heavier, fragile, dangerous. Like something between us was shifting again, slowly and quietly, and I was terrified to look at it too closely. The instructor then transitioned into partner support positions. Damon slid closer behind me, bracing an arm around my waist as he applied counter-pressure to my lower back. His breath brushed the side of my neck. His body curved around mine in a way that made the room fall away. The instructor smiled and nodded. "Perfect. You'll be a great support partner." I swallowed hard. I was trying so hard not to read into things, but feelings I'd buried for years stirred in my chest like embers being fanned by a quiet breeze. Damon adjusted his grip, gentle yet firm, guiding me through another breath. And in that moment, I realized something I wasn't ready to admit. He wasn't doing this out of obligation anymore. He cared. Too much. And I was terrified of what that meant. After the instructor finished demonstrating newborn care, she asked for pairs to practice. Damon helped me sit up, supporting my elbow like I was made of glass. He whispered, careful and low, "If this is too much, tell me." He didn't say it out of pity. He said it like someone afraid of hurting me again. I hated how much that softened me. As we practiced holding the plastic baby models, Damon was hyper-focused. He adjusted the doll's neck, held it with surprising gentleness, asked questions the instructor hadn't even finished explaining. At one point, he whispered quietly, barely a breath, "I want to get this right." And the sincerity of it broke something open in me.
But right when the room felt warm, when I felt safe, when the distance between us finally felt small instead of impossible, the conversation turned toward the future. The instructor asked each pair if they had prepared a birth plan. Couples around us talked about hospitals, birthing centers, pain relief preferences. When she got to us, Damon answered quickly, "Hospital. I want him somewhere safe." Something in me tensed. The instructor continued, asking about aftercare, living arrangements, and support systems. And Damon said it, simply, naturally, like it made perfect sense. I'll take time off work so I can stay with him and the baby. The room blurred, because he said it like it was already decided, like this was our life, like he belonged there. I kept staring at my hands, hoping the heat in my chest would disappear, but it only grew. The instructor moved to the next couple, but Damon nudged me gently. "Rowan, what's wrong?" I whispered that nothing was wrong. He whispered my name again, soft, pleading, frustrated and gentle all at once. That's what snapped me. Because suddenly, it didn't feel like support. It didn't feel like co-parenting. It felt like something deeper, something dangerous, something I had spent years running from. I told him I didn't need him deciding things for me. I told him he didn't need to take responsibility for my life. I told him I didn't expect us to be a family. He froze, like the words cut straight through him. His voice dropped, hurt, controlled, trembling under the surface. "So you still think I'm going to run?" I didn't answer. He looked away, jaw tight. "You think I'm here because of guilt?" And again, I didn't answer. Because the truth was terrifying.
I wasn't scared of him leaving anymore. I was scared of him staying. Because if he stayed and I let myself want him, if he stayed and I let myself believe he cared and then he eventually realized I wasn't what he wanted, that would destroy me in a way I wouldn't survive. The class ended in silence. We walked out side by side like strangers, wearing the memories of something softer. When we reached the parking lot, the tension finally snapped. Damon spoke first, voice low and shaking in that way he got when he was trying not to break. "Rowan, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm showing up, I'm trying, but you won't let me in." I stared at the pavement and whispered the truth I hadn't said out loud since the night everything changed. "I'm scared of you." He staggered. The breath left his body. "Rowan?" I cut him off. "I'm scared of what you make me feel." He went still, completely still. And I wished I could take the words back, but I couldn't. Not when they'd been clawing inside me for months. The air between us turned sharp, too intimate, too honest. Damon whispered, barely audible, "Tell me what you want me to do." And I said the words I knew would break both of us. "I want space." Silence swallowed everything. He stepped back, eyes full of hurt he didn't bother hiding. "If that's what you need, I won't argue." He turned away, walking back to the car. The whole drive home was silent. He didn't touch me, didn't look at me, didn't speak. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I wondered if I'd made a mistake. The tension between Damon and me didn't disappear after the prenatal class. If anything, it grew heavier, like a thick fog that wrapped itself around every word we tried to speak. Those next few days were quiet, too quiet. He kept his distance like I asked, but it didn't feel like space, it felt like absence. And even though I was the one who pushed him away, the silence gnawed at me until I started avoiding my own reflection because I didn't like the person staring back. My thoughts were a mess of wanting him close and wanting him far enough not to hurt me. But the universe didn't care about my emotional crisis. Because one evening, when the sky outside was the color of rain clouds and I was sitting on the couch trying to breathe through a faint cramp, everything changed. It started as a tightness, a squeeze that pulled low and deep. I thought it was Braxton Hicks. It wasn't. The second wave hit harder, then a third, and suddenly the tiny apartment felt too small, too hot, too loud, even though it was dead silent.
My water didn't break dramatically like in movies. It was just pain, sharp and rhythmic. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands. I didn't call the hospital. I didn't call my mother. I called Damon. He answered before the first ring even finished, like he'd been waiting for something, anything. His voice came through strained, worried, too breathless to be casual. "Rowan, what's wrong?" I told him I needed help. He didn't ask questions. He didn't waste a second. He said he was already on his way.
15 minutes felt like an hour, but then he burst through the door, hair messy like he'd run the whole way, chest rising and falling too fast, eyes wide and locked onto me instantly. The moment he saw my face, he knew. "You're in labor." I nodded, and for the first time since this journey began, I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. Not fear of responsibility or mistakes. Fear of losing me. He didn't hesitate. One arm wrapped around my waist, the other grabbed the hospital bag I'd been too stubborn to admit I'd packed. "Let's go. Now." He held me steady the whole way down the stairs, whispering calm instructions even though his voice trembled beneath every word. In the car, he kept one hand on the wheel and the other stretched out for me to grip. I didn't realize how tightly I was holding him until my knuckles went white. He didn't pull away. By the time we reached the hospital, the contractions were bad enough that I could barely stand upright. A nurse rushed over with a wheelchair, but Damon didn't let go of me, not for a second. His hand stayed anchored to mine, like he was terrified that if he released me, something awful would happen. Inside the delivery room, everything moved quickly. Monitors, nurses, bright lights, commands I barely processed. But every time the world blurred, Damon's voice broke through the haze. "I'm right here. You're not alone. I'm not leaving." He wasn't shouting. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't cold or distant or unsure. He was steady. For once, he wasn't trying to fix anything. He was just holding me through the pain, quiet, protective, unshakable. And I realized something then. He wasn't the man from my fears. He wasn't the boy who said cruel things out of ignorance. He wasn't the alpha I'd built walls against. He was someone trying, someone learning, someone staying. And gods, that scared me more than anything. Hours passed in a blur of contractions, breathing, and Damon's hand gripping mine hard enough that I knew he was feeling everything with me. When the pain peaked, I squeezed his shirt so tightly that the fabric tore at the collar. He didn't flinch. He didn't care. He kept whispering my name in this soft, trembling voice that made me want to cry for reasons that had nothing to do with labor. And then, a cry. Not mine, not Damon's. A tiny, sharp, trembling cry. Everything stopped. The room faded. The pain dulled. The panic evaporated. Because they placed this tiny, warm, wrinkled little life against my chest, and suddenly nothing hurt anymore. My daughter. My daughter. The world felt impossibly small and impossibly huge in the same moment. My chest cracked open under the weight of emotions I didn't have names for.
She was perfect, so small, so alive. I didn't even realize I was crying until a tear hit her forehead. Damon leaned over me, voice breaking completely. "Rowan, she's beautiful." And for the first time in months, I didn't find fear in his voice. I found awe, hope, love. Not necessarily for me, not yet, but for the tiny life between us. He touched her cheek with shaking fingers, gentle, terrified, like she might dissolve if he held her too tightly. Then he whispered, barely a breath, "Our girl. Our." Something warm cracked inside me, spilling everywhere. Later, when they moved us to a quiet room, Damon didn't leave my side. He paced. He hovered. He kept checking the baby's blanket, her breathing, the angle of her head. He was terrified of messing up, but he didn't run.
I always thought endings came with noise, like doors slamming or hearts breaking or someone walking away for the last time. But mine came softly, like my daughter's breathing, like Damon's hand brushing mine, like the quiet realization that I wasn't alone anymore. For weeks after the birth, I moved like I was walking through someone else's life. There were bottles on the counter, tiny socks everywhere, half-finished diaper packs, a crib that Damon insisted on assembling himself even though he cursed at every screw. And then there was our daughter. So small, so warm, so perfect, it hurt to look at her for too long. I told myself this was temporary, that Damon would eventually step back, that he'd remember all the reasons he used to keep Omegas at arm's length, that the responsibility would overwhelm him. But he stayed. Through the sleepless nights, through my panic when the baby cried too long, through my mother showing up again, of course she did. She came to the hospital 2 days after we got discharged, pretending to be concerned. Damon answered the door before I could stop him.
The look he gave her wasn't anger this time. It was something colder, sharper. "Leave," he said. "You're not welcome here." She tried to push past him. "That's my grandchild." "No," he said. "You don't get to claim her. Not after everything you did to Rowan." Her lip curled. "You really think you can keep me away forever?" "Yes," he said simply, "and I will." She tried again, but Damon didn't budge. Not once. Not even when she threw every insult she could think of. I stood behind him, holding our daughter, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid. When she finally stormed off, Damon shut the door and turned to me. "You don't owe her anything," he whispered. "Not anymore." And something inside me, something old and tired and wounded, finally let go. The weeks turned into months, and somehow the tension between us changed, softened. We learned each other again. He learned how I took my tea. I learned he hummed when he rocked the baby. He learned I hated thunderstorms. I learned he stayed up late sometimes just to watch her sleep. We fought, sure. We disagreed on schedules, on feeding times, on how many blankets were too many. But every fight ended the same way, with both of us sitting on the couch, too tired to keep arguing, the baby asleep in Damon's arms, and something warm settling between us. Not quite love. Not yet. Something gentler. Something beginning. It was a quiet evening. The baby had finally fallen asleep after hours of stubborn crying. I was exhausted, leaning against the wall, trying not to cry myself. Damon walked in, holding her gently against his chest. "She's okay," he whispered. "She's just tired, like her dad." I laughed, a small, broken sound. And then I sank onto the edge of the bed, pressing my hands to my face. "I can't do this," I whispered. "I'm not enough. I don't know how to be a parent. I didn't have good examples. I'm scared I'm going to ruin her." The silence stretched. Then Damon sat beside me, still holding our daughter. "Rowan," he said softly, "look at us." I did, reluctantly. "We didn't plan this. We didn't even understand each other when it happened," he said. "But we're here. We're trying. And that makes us enough."
His voice cracked a little. "You're enough." My throat tightened. "I don't know how to love without fear," I whispered. He nodded. "Then let me show you you don't have to be afraid of me anymore." And for the first time, I believed him.
It happened on a morning that didn't feel special. No anniversary, no celebration, just a quiet day with sunlight spilling through the curtains. The baby was asleep in the cradle. I was folding clothes. Damon was strangely quiet. When I looked up, he was standing in the doorway, holding a small velvet box. My heart stopped. "Damon?" He took a breath, a shaky one. "I know we didn't start right," he said. "I know I hurt you without meaning to. I know you hid yourself because you didn't think I'd stay." His eyes softened. "But I'm here. I want to be here. Not because of the baby, not because of obligation, because somewhere along this messy road, I fell in love with you." My chest tightened so hard I couldn't breathe. He stepped closer, voice trembling. "I don't want to fix the past. I want to build the future. With you. With her." He opened the box. A simple ring. Silver, small, real. "Rowan Hale," he whispered. "Marry me?" I didn't speak for a long moment. I walked toward him slowly, carefully, like the air might break if I breathed too hard. Then I took his hand, and I nodded. Not because everything was perfect, not because all the wounds were healed, but because for the first time in my life, the future didn't terrify me. It felt possible. I spent years hiding who I was, afraid of being seen, afraid of being loved, but I learned something. Sometimes the family you're meant to have isn't the one you come from. It's the one you build, the one that chooses you, the one that stays.
If you enjoyed the story, please comment, like, and subscribe so you'll get notified when part 2 comes out.